Hi, this is Jeff Davis, executive producer of Teen Wolf.
Hi, this is Christian Taylor, co-executive producer.
Now, as a writer, some scenes take forever to write, and they just drag along, and you feel like death at your computer. This scene took me 15 minutes to write, and it came out to be one of my favorite scenes for two reasons. Dylan's performance in this scene is extraordinary, and this was actually picked up by our director, Russell, and his direction of it was beautiful. Several shots are directed by Tim Andrew, the director of this episode, but Russell did all of this stuff in the guidance counselor office, and he's amazing at it.
In his last moments.
Now, you were there for a lot of the shooting, weren't you?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of my job is to make sure that performances for you and for us in terms of the writer's room come through, and so we just, and Russell's very collaborative in that sense, and so it's really great, and we've got really good actors, so it works really nicely.
Yeah, so for the audience at home watching this, Christian is the guy who gets the phone call from me when I watch dailies and hate what I see, and I say, what the hell happened?
I say, I was actually getting coffee right at that moment.
But it was your idea to do a lot of close-ups of Dylan's eyes and the mouth.
Well, I actually said at one point, why don't we just go from his eyes to his mouth, Russell, in very close up, I just knew it would help with the cutting point, and it would also, so he did a couple of takes doing that, and it's filmic,
It's filmic is what's the difference here, and one of my favorite things about working on this show is we always try to go for filmic.
Yeah.
We try to make it look like a movie. Like, look at that shot.
Beautiful.
And a lot of TV shows would simply shoot this as two overs. It would be over the shoulder of this character and over the shoulder of that character.
I think, Russell's really set the tone of that, and you've set the tone in terms of, like, making the crew aspire to that and make the show look a hell of a lot more expensive than it is.
Yeah. At the very beginning of Teen Wolf, on the pilot episode, I said to the other producers, I don't want a shooter, I want a filmmaker. And we got Russell Mulcahy to direct the pilot episode. Now, look at Melissa Ponzio there. No dialogue, but she tells us exactly what she's feeling in that conflict. And it's these beautiful close-up shots. I love shots like this.
Yeah, it's really great.
Now, what the people at home should also know is that we are recording this commentary track at a sound studio called Margarita Mix. And we've just been served margaritas. So if the quality of our commentary goes downhill, blame the studio, not us.
We're about to get our margaritas from a very nice lady giving them to us. It's hilarious.
Now, the fun thing about an episode like this is you want to be able to recap as much as possible. And sometimes the best way to do that and to push the story forward is to do it through an actor's voice. And so we set up this very simple idea of Stiles telling us what's happening and telling us how everything has changed.
Why would you ask me that?
And of course, we need a moment of humor there to carry us forward and remind us that we're watching Teen Wolf. But this is one of our heavier episodes, and relying on Dylan O'Brien in this first scene is unusual for us to bring the drama. But the amazing thing about him is he's a really good dramatic actor.
Yeah, he really is. And this was a clever idea to sort of recap everything.
I do my notes after the session.
One of the things I really like to do in scenes like this, especially as this scene is what I call a take a meeting scene,
Stiles.
you always want to build it around something visual. So I thought of the idea of he's knotting the lacrosse stick, and he's constantly toying with that knot. And the reason is because he feels like his life is unraveling. So subconsciously, you're telling the viewer, this is what's happening to him. He's not just talking to us, he's showing what he's feeling by constantly pulling that knot tighter and tighter.
It's like it's a panic attack.
Now, the panic attacks go back to Stiles' history with his mom dying. And this is all true about him talking about drowning. And you'll hear a very noticeable shift in the music. And our composer, Dino, worked really hard on this. And I told him, by the end of it, I want you to build and build and build to hope.
To not let the water in.
Because what she's doing is she's giving him hope again. She's telling him to fight back. And it's this quote from Churchill that I've always loved that perfectly fits the scene. And sometimes it's really, really hard to come up with the last line of the scene. So why not let it be Winston Churchill?
It's funny because I was writing a World War II movie at this very moment. Actually, I had to deliver a draft of a feature film while I was in Atlanta, and you came up with this quote, and I was like, oh, I wish I'd used that.
Steal it. Steal it.
It's agony now, and then
This kid has beautiful eyes, too.
it's just hell later on.
And think about something Winston Churchill once said.
There you go.
If you're going through hell, keep going.
I also think that's a really nice thing to tell young people because I think it's very true. I mean,
Oftentimes, high school is hell.
it is, and being young is so complicated sometimes, and especially in today's. I think I remember I think a lot of the shirtless scenes I kept saying, let's have him come out of the shower, because all these actors were working so hard on their bodies.
I
I was
know.
like, we should film it.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Now, that's a beautiful shot, and it's hard to do something like that.
You can see, Scott, there's been some interesting developments lately. I think we should catch up.
We leave those lines up to Michael Hogan,
Yeah.
who delivers them perfectly
Yeah.
with relish. He's one of those actors who, you tell him to chew the scenery, he will eat it up. And he's good at it.
Oh yeah. Well, you need that character as well. It's, as you said, it's the emperor. It's for this type of show.
Yes. He's the one who delivers those memorable lines. You have to have the most powerful villain you can to make a show like this where teenagers go up against these powerful authority figures to make it compelling.
Because it's all an analogy. And there's the Canema looking great.
Yeah, well, what we have to do in shots like that is wrinkle removal. A lot of the CG money that we spend is to fix up a suit like that.
Well, I think the hilarious thing about this is actually that we fitted the suit to Colton Haynes, and then Colton Haynes
Couldn't wear it.
because he was allergic to the latex, and he would break out. So obviously we couldn't put an actor, so the next day we'd need to actually film him normally. So we put the stunt guy in who didn't fit the suit exactly, so there was
There was a lot of duct tape.
wrinkles.
How am I supposed to know where they are?
I think with the proper motivation, you could draw them out.
Now, that tail is all CG, and it looks pretty damn seamless, doesn't it?
The tail is amazing on this. Eden did a great job, and it, as you said before, it sells
The creature, the suit.
the suit.
Yeah.
Well, you know the myth, Scott. The Canema.
Because this could have gone horribly wrong for us.
Oh, terribly wrong.
It could have been a real disaster. And I think the way it was shot, we had the stunt guy. I mean, this suit, we had the stunt guy in this suit, and he'd be sweating.
Yeah. I paid out of my own pocket to get him a cooling suit that he could wear inside. I felt so guilty about it.
No, that's amazing. That's what makes you a great boss. I don't know why production didn't pay for it, but that's another issue.
And there's a nice moment between mother and son that
It's not that easy.
you always want to thread these moments in a teen show because, I mean, we keep a lot of things from our parents, but they are a huge influence on us.
I can't.
And this is just a kid trying to protect his mom.
Told us to be back before sunup.
I thought I heard something.
Look, if we're
Now, it's another scene in the woods, and Tim Andrew gets a lot of credit for making these scenes as big as possible, for finding all the right lighting situations. Like, that's not the moon. That's a big light on a condor.
Yeah,
But it looks like a great moonshot, doesn't it?
It does.
And there's that callback to the first scene. There are no wolves in California. And it's true, actually. Most of the wolves have migrated out. There's been thoughts of reintroducing wolves into California, but it would take a concerted effort.
Even though where we were shooting, by the way, is the Wolf Sanctuary that
Yes.
that the fans have put
Money into
money
yeah.
to, which was really close to where we were shooting yesterday.
Yeah.
You decided.
When?
tonight,
Everyone's going to be at the game. We figured it was the best time.
it's not like we want to.
What do you want?
Since I just turned 16 a month ago, I wouldn't mind getting my license.
Showing the breakup of Derek's pack was a big theme in this season. It was the idea of hubris. And we often talked about Derek Hale as a tragic Greek hero who takes on too much and who has too much confidence and needs to learn humility. And the funny thing is, the person who's going to teach him humility in this episode is Peter.
You want to look for another pack? How are you even gonna find one?
Now, this threads in a lot of the mythology we've been building up, which is that you can't survive without a pack. The idea that you can't survive without a pack. And he's warning them, you're not going to. Now, here's a scene that I love, and I was very nervous about writing. I knew that if we were going to create Isaac, Daniel Sharman's character, as a villain, mostly throughout this season, that we were going to have to redeem him at some point. And the way we choose to do that is through a puppy.
That was clever. Because people fall for it. They fall for the dogs.
Mm-hmm.
It was unbelievable.
There must have been a dozen of them.
Maybe more.
Yeah, or maybe only 2.
Now listen to this fact.
You know what the Beau Geste effect is? If they modulate their howls with a rapid shift in tone, 2 wolves can sound like 20.
All true.
Look, that doesn't
And that's the fun thing about TV. In film, you don't have time to use little facts like that.
Right.
I call them little fun facts. I took them from, we did a lot of them on Criminal Minds when I was working on it. And they actually on the pilot, they called them Jeff Davis fun facts, because I would always do a ton of research and I'd say, that has to go in the show. And the idea of two wolves modulating their howls to make it sound like they're a full pack.
It's great.
It's great stuff. And there's little ideas like how wolves in the snow, they'll take a mouthful of snow to hide their breath so that they can hunt, so that they won't be seen.
It's great.
I love stuff like that.
It's great.
It adds another dimension to an episode. It adds a level of smartness.
I'd expected a slightly warmer welcome.
Now, I remember telling Ian Bohen that the greatest compliment to an actor is being brought back from the dead. And he is great.
He's great.
Smell like that.
And this is a whole very clever sort of setup for the end.
Exactly.
Thing to me a few months ago.
I'm like, which episode is this? I'm now completely...
11.
It's 11.
This is episode 11. It's titled Battlefield. We love to do titles that have double meanings. Battlefield, as in they're going to be in a full-on battle, but also Battlefield, as in a good bit of this episode takes place in the lacrosse field, where Styles is going through his own battle. Now, I told Heron Makeup that Isaac needed to look absolutely angelic in this scene. He needed to look beautiful, because this is the scene that was going to redeem his character and make him a hero.
And it's like transitioning him into being one of Scott's sort of...
Pack.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's something we're going to develop a lot in season 3. And this moment here is actually a big setup for season 3 as well. You'll see something like this coming back. Now, werewolves can't heal each other, but when we were researching packs and seeing just how close wolves were, it's interesting to know that that they're that close that they support each other, they're constantly around each other, and that's not the idea of them being able to take each other's pain. Kind of goes in line with the whole idea of a pack.
Love that. Look at that.
That effect looked beautiful.
It's great. It's amazing how just things like that, you know, you couldn't have done that a couple of years ago and made it look that good.
No, it looks really good. It looks like it's actually happening.
Yeah.
You took some of his pain away. Only a little bit.
And we might use that again. Let's see.
Oh, we certainly will.
It's okay. First time
If you're hearing clinking ice, it's because we're drinking margaritas. I'm sorry.
And look at that dog. You want to redeem a character in the audience's eyes? Put him with a cute dog.
Quite a situation you got yourself in here, Dad.
Now, one of the things I love about Ian Bohen is I can give him paragraphs of dialogue, and he'll handle it perfectly.
Picking up werewolves out of every self-esteem deprived adolescent in town.
Now, it takes a lot of breathing power, a lot of lung capacity to spit out some of those lines.
Hilarious.
I have left.
You know, the funny thing, though, behind the scenes, is that I'll look at him on the day and I'll be like, you're not going to shave the goatee?
Sure.
And he'll say, I'm thinking of keeping it. And I'll be like, thinking to myself, I'd really like him to shave the goatee.
It's so funny because I said that to him the other day. He said, should I shave it? And I said, well, you're looking a little French sort of evil guy.
Yeah.
Moustache twirling.
You know, in a few years, it'll be to the point where if I don't want that goatee in post-production, the goatee will be gone. CGI will do
Yeah,
that.
because it costs like $5 then.
I usually have no idea what I'm doing. Actually, I always have no idea what I'm doing.
Now, what's funny is I think those are the same damn X-rays up all season. So I would have to say that dog behind him and that X-ray has been in trouble. This is about the 10th operation that dog has had.
We didn't switch it out. Are you serious? I love that.
I'm pretty certain.
Oh, God. Oh, dear.
Are you gonna go with him? Yeah. Yeah, I think I will.
Now listen to this last line.
Good luck with the game, though. Oh, thanks, but I'm not going either. Can't even think about playing some meaningless game.
We talk a lot about something called buttoning the scene, and that's a theater term.
No, I skipped it. Why?
You didn't hear?
And it's very difficult. They have to end the scene with a line with a certain emphasis.
There, like he was
As if nothing had happened.
But that means the game tonight.
Yeah.
And these are all digital push-ins, aren't they?
Yeah. We will basically, the editors and I will sit there and I'll say, all right, push in on that shot. And if it's a really tense moment, we will do digital push-ins, which is just moving the camera slowly and slowly into a closer and closer tight up.
Yep.
And it can in post-production, it can really add a lot to heighten the tension of scene, to heighten the emotion of a scene.
I'm getting worried about you.
You start to notice it because it's easy to tell when it's a digital push-in or when it's an actual dolly in,
Yeah.
which are two very different things. A dolly in is when they've put the camera on wheels and they actually move it in towards the camera while racking focus. A digital push-in is in post-production. We just slowly push the camera in. We slowly make the image itself tighter and tighter.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically, see, that's a dolly.
Yep.
It's basically a digital zoom. So
Yes.
you're not changing perspective. So it doesn't have that sort of, Kubrick uses a lot in The Shining. It's all zooms.
Yeah.
And actually the episode that I'm coming up to direct, I'm actually going to use zoom for a particular trick because it's always going to be a point of view of a character.
I'm going to have to talk about this scene. This
Go.
is the speech from Independence Day, and we had to cut it down quite a bit so that we wouldn't have to license it and pay for the entire thing. Orny actually wanted to do the entire speech in Bill Pullman's voice, and I absolutely said no.
He would have pulled it off probably.
He did a pretty good impression. I allowed him to take the jacket and have the megaphone, but I didn't want him to do the impression of Bill Pullman. He was so disappointed.
But as the day the world declared in one voice.
And it's hard in an episode that starts off with this big 10-minute dramatic scene. Then we go for absolute goofiness with the speech from Independence Day because Coach he doesn't have any speeches of his own.
Well, it's a brilliant trope because you get to have levity with him throughout the episode.
Now talk about buttoning a scene or delivering a line with relish. Listen to this one.
I haven't been here long. There's no denying my pride in having a winning team for this school. I know you'll all be brilliant tonight, even with only one co-captain.
And Hogan, I love it when he delivers a line like this.
I'm your principal, but I'm also a fan, so don't think I'll be content to watch you merely beat this team. Get out there and murder them.
And the music perfectly rises and gives us that low, ominous tone. And it reminds us, the audience, and Scott, holy crap, he's going to do something bad.
Classes. Academics come first.
Coach, you don't get it. You have to let me play.
McCall. No, not tonight. Tonight.
What is that extra doing in the
Oh, I
background?
don't know. The fun of the extras. Terrifying.
Dancing? Now, I have to say, Hecklin loves the physicality of his character. He does a lot of his own stunts.
Yeah.
Does a lot of his own fight stuff. In this show, we often try to make, we use the reelies, as we call them, as much as possible.
I can see that it's cathartic for you.
You're letting go of all the anger.
This is the start of Peter's big speech. It's his seduction of Derek.
I may be the one taking the beating, Derek, but you've already been beaten.
But a lot of what he's doing is he's seducing Derek to his way of thinking by using the truth. And whenever you can do that in a story, you've got the audience on his side as well. And the audience starts to think, well, he's kind of right. And that's the fun part. Get the audience to sympathize with the bad guy. And then you pull the rug out from under them.
Your dad coming?
Now, this is a tough moment, too.
You know,
Because the main characters are sitting there and they're admitting defeat. I love scenes like this.
you know what's going on? Not yet.
Because we, the audience, don't know what they're going to do.
Right.
It's gonna be bad, isn't it? I mean, like people screaming, running for their lives, blood, killing men.
And we're reminding the audience that all hope is lost. Because what we're going to do in this episode is we're going to give someone a really triumphant moment. And in order to do that, we need to take him as far down as we possibly can.
The other night, seeing my dad get hit over the head by Matt, you know, while I'm just lying there and I can't even move, it just...
This is a callback to the first scene. Pours out his feelings to the guidance counselor, and now he's got to admit the same thing to Scott.
Things that you can do.
And Scott here is letting him off the hook.
I can't. It's okay. We're losing, dude.
And I always have a rule. If we're going to get that heavy drama,
You gotta, yeah.
we got to go for the funny again.
It's great. It's really great.
So bring in the coach.
Greenberg, he sucks. You suck slightly less.
It's a fun line.
It's great.
Watch.
On the field? With the team?
Yes, unless you'd rather play with yourself.
I already did that today, twice.
I'm still surprised I get away with that.
That was the writer's room that we came
Yeah.
up with.
Oh no, why is my son running on the field?
I love it. The father's like,
Because he's on the team?
He is. He's on the team. He's on the field. My son is on the field!
Oh, you got to love Lyndon.
Oh, dear.
And we could have used a few more extras there.
yeah.
There
Yeah,
are
that's-
5 people showing up at the championship game.
Yeah, I know. It's the mastery.
Yes. Now, just in case the audience doesn't remember, we want to know that that pillbox is very important. So we're going to show it again. We're going to highlight it.
That's funny because we put the pillbox in, but we didn't really realize how significant it would be until you and I are walking along the street one day,
Yep.
and we just suddenly like, okay, that's how we do this.
That I call the subconscious writer.
Yeah.
In our heads, our subconscious writer was telling us, go down this path. It's going to be great.
Yeah.
And then when we came up with it, when we realized we were standing around and just, that's perfect. Now, I remember Tim Andrew, who's the director, said, how about we put them on ATVs? I said, are you sure about that? He's like, yeah, it'll be great. ATVs racing around in the forest. And on our show, ATVs racing around in the forest, that's a night of shooting.
Yeah.
Seconds. When that scoreboard clock begins counting down from 30, if you haven't...
The ticking clock. Now, as a writer, you're always trying to think of, where can I add a ticking clock? And you've got one literally sitting in the middle of the field there. So why not put a real clock on it?
So bravely came out to support you.
And he's threatening everyone in his life to get him to do what he wants to do. And one of the difficult things about writing a show like this is how do you take ordinary teenage life experiences and turn them into thriller moments? So the field becomes the scene of a thriller. Is Jackson the Kanema on the field going to kill someone before the game is over? And that's how we try to, in the writer's room, constantly try to think of how to make these ordinary high school settings dangerous.
Yeah.
Derek down. Because if you don't...
I love this line. That's a great shot.
Jackson rip someone's head off right in the middle of the field and drench everyone you love and care about in blood.
Little Shakespeare there.
A little bit, yes. Why not go for it, though?
Oh, yeah.
Right here, I'm not healing as fast. Coming back from the dead isn't easy, you know. Not as strong as I used to.
Now, part of the reason we write scenes like this, which is you get 2 actors in a room and you fill it up with a ton of dialogue, is because scenes like the lacrosse stuff are so hard to shoot.
Mm-hmm.
At a certain point in TV, you've got to say, all right, well, the next scene has to be two people in a room talking.
Yeah.
And that's what earns you that lacrosse field scene. Especially with this episode, we had a lot of difficulty getting those lacrosse shots. It takes hours to do. You've got people running around on the field, people in the background. So what you're going to notice here is several of the shots in this lacrosse scene are stolen. We stole shots from the first season lacrosse stuff. We stole shots from episode 4 of this season.
Yeah, because this stuff is such a time killer.
Yes.
It's all pieces. It's basically action. It's a giant action sequence, and
Yes.
that is not, you know.
And the funny thing about it is after writing these scenes, I realized myself that they're all little scenes in and of themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'm aware of that. Now sit.
Which may be one of the reasons why we don't have lacrosse in the first 12 episodes of season 3.
Yeah.
Now here's the return of Isaac.
Came to win.
There you go.
I love it.
And there's the return of that theme, that heroic theme. Those shots look great. That was one of the great things about Atlanta was it gave us beautiful forests to shoot in. We have great lighting. It's a fast-paced action. And this stuff is not easy for us to shoot.
Oh, those are stunts. I was wondering if they were the reals.
We have a number of these shots are the real people. Gage and Sinqua, who are two newest wolves this season. Now, this is her Hunger Games Katniss shot. Now, I really like this moment because it shows a real turnaround for Allison's character. And the idea we had in this season was we wanted to see Allison turn into Kate from the first season, to see her be ruthless. And it's something inside her. And to have her recognize that she has that kind of bloodthirst in her as well. She's as much of a wolf as Scott is, as much of a killer as he can be. Now, a little slow motion always makes a character look powerful.
Now, that's digital, right? The arrow? Or is that real?
I think that was the real arrow, and because the ones we fire are all digital. All CG.
Now it's pretty much just keep Jackson from killing anyone. No, that might be easier if you're actually...
Now, the next scene here was some of the hardest stuff to put together. All the falls, lacrosse falls, many of those were stolen. And what we do is we steal a shot from a previous episode, we flip it around, and then we're using CGI, we change the number on their jersey.
It's amazing.
Yeah. So if you don't have the time to do a full pickup day where you can get all those shots that you missed that night, you got to be clever. You got to say, well, let's take that scene, that moment in episode 4 where somebody hit the ground. Let's flip it around. And it's basically Photoshop. You make it look a little different.
Like that?
That was from episode 4.
That's amazing.
Ramirez! You're in.
Episode 4. I'm not kidding.
Hilarious.
That's how we do it on Teen Wolf. But it works.
Lady! Seriously, what the hell is your problem?
The other thing we do sometimes is we'll use the same shot, but we'll change the size of it. It'll be a medium shot in one part of the scene, and then we'll use the shot again and push it up to a close-up. The things we do in editing. Now, this is a Boyd hero moment. It's the sacrifice of the hero. And what we called it was the Boromir moment. Because you remember in Fellowship of the Ring?
Yeah.
He gets hit by the arrows. Sinqua makes a fantastic wolf, doesn't he?
Mm-hmm.
It's something about it. The teeth fit him. Even the makeup looks great on him. He has a great physicality. She plays a good bad guy, too, doesn't she?
She really does. I think she really relished it because it was giving depth and added conflict to the character.
Yeah. it's funny how actors always, they want to go a little crazy. I remember reading a story about Terminator 2 and hearing James Cameron, I want to go crazy. And she gave a phenomenal performance in that movie. And Crystal told me, she's like, I want to go nuts. And I said, well, let's go for it. In TV, it can be a little hard because you've only got 42 minutes an episode to take them to a place, and you're servicing all these different characters. So one of my little regrets was not seeing that transition happen a little more gradually.
Yeah, I think, but that's, you know, that's sort of what happens with this schedule.
Yeah.
Because you know the story you want to tell. Yeah. It's just, and we had so much story.
Yeah, we really did. And now the fruition of this idea of Allison turning into Kate, Argent fires the gun. And he did the same thing to Kate in the first season. And we get to show a little badass Argent moment there, too. Because he's a damn perfect shot, isn't he? Now, I remember writing this, seeing these actors, seeing the characters each fall at the same time. And I wanted to be very specific that they all hit the ground in a similar way, slow motion. And it's like our heroes falling like dominoes in the face of the threat. And it's basically a story about how do they pick themselves back up and fight again. That's what the penultimate episode always is to me. It's the same thing we did in the episode 11 of the first scene. We do it here, which is we take them down to their lowest point so we can show them victorious in episode 12. It's a kind of a real movie type trick, actually. Great. It's a real movie storytelling.
Yeah, it's the 11th hour, literally.
Exactly. The 11th hour, and it's the 11th episode.
An explanation.
For what? I caught them. Me.
Caught came very close to kill, and that's not the way we do this.
Maybe it's not.
Now, this too is this moment here is seeing J.R. Bourne's character Argent slowly realize, am I on the right side? Slowly start to wonder, am I on the right side here? Am I doing the right thing? What is happening to my daughter?
What?
It's just the first time I've heard you call him that.
And that's a line that says, instead of us saying, you're on Gerard's side now, aren't you? She calls him Grandpa.
Yeah, that's great.
It's hard to come up with things like that. How do you tell the audience she's on Gerard's side without actually saying it? Now I'm going to tell a funny story about this scene. In the original cut of this scene, when Scott comes in to save Isaac, what happens is Scott comes in, you see a hunter lurch up and then fall, and you hear shk, and Scott's claws come out of his back. And then he goes on to fight the others. And I said, wait a minute, Scott just killed someone. I didn't write that in the script.
Yeah.
And I said to the director, well, he just killed someone. And the director says, oh yeah, it's too violent, isn't it? And I said, he killed someone.
Our hero.
Our hero cannot murder a hunter in cold blood. So he's like, do you want us to take it out? I'm like, yes.
No, you're like, no, I'll take it out. Thank you.
Yes, that's one of the nice things about being showrunner. Final cut. Great smile. Nice reveal.
It's nice.
Yeah.
Mirrors. Love mirrors.
And the wonderful thing is about this is Coach Orny gives these great reactions. You just cut to his face and see that frustration. He's great at it. And now we get the moment we've been building up to. That quiet, nobody quite notices yet, and it's Styles with the ball. And I said it in the first season, Styles would never play lacrosse. And of course, we got to break that rule.
You had to. In the 11th hour.
Yep.
Love it.
Yeah. And the sound effects there, it sounds like stampeding buffalo. I remember seeing these dailies and telling Tim, the director, oh, perfect. And you know what we do for that trick to make the net look like that? They spritz the net, so when the ball hits it, water flies up. It's a beautiful trick. It's a very simple trick,
yeah.
But it makes it look so amazing.
I'm sure.
Now listen to the song here. I love this song. Editor's choice.
Where is he?
And it rises and rises, and It has that moment of, oh my God, we're winning. And after an episode where we've seen Stilinski and Stiles at the lowest point in their relationship, this is a visual hug, you know, to see them together.
It's great.
There's a myth that you can cure a werewolf simply by...
What do you think was the funnest thing to shoot in season 2? I'm trying to think that.
That is a good question.
There were so many great...
What was the most fun?
The rave was fun. The pool stuff was interesting.
Well, the pool stuff was really hard. That was one of the longest days we've ever shot in a Teen Wolf.
And we shot it twice. I had to do all the pickup stuff with Russell.
It's funny because some of the best scenes are often some of the hardest scenes to shoot.
Yeah.
So I would have to say the most fun scenes to shoot are probably those character moments where somebody gets a laugh or Dylan comes up with a brilliant improv.
He'd never admit it, but there is one person. One young...
What's fun for me often is sitting in the editing room, finding the right piece of music with the editor, or making the perfect cut, or saying, all right, cut a frame off of that shot. Now cut a frame off of this shot. Now switch those two shots. And suddenly, a scene that was a disaster suddenly works.
It suddenly works.
And I did very little editing with Alyssa on this episode. It was so... all these moments were great. And I love seeing when the actors just get it right. Because you're going to watch, coming up, Dylan turns around, and the look he and Lydia give each other is perfect. It's that unrequited love, and it's for the first moment Dylan looks over, Stiles looks over and sees Lydia cheering for him, and the look on his face is priceless. And the music is just great here too. I always tell,
look at that. It's
look
great.
at that. Look at her eyes. That slight smile.
And our 5 extras.
Yes. Now, the hard part of a show like this is now look at Tyler. Tyler has to rush in and be the hero, which is often sometimes the least interesting character to play. But the whole season, the whole series rests on his shoulders, playing the hero.
And it's interesting, this episode we talked about right from, pretty early on, we said, let's do it to be continued.
Yeah.
So that the last 2 episodes are one story, which I think is a lot of fun.
And what's interesting as well is we actually took the ending off this episode. I think it was something like 4 minutes of the ending. And we put it at the top of episode 12. It was just a better fit, a better cut.
And this was really, I think, such a clever twist as well.
Yeah, because you're going down to 0 and you're not exactly waiting for them to win the championship. You're waiting for someone to die. And who's going to die? Not the one you think.
Nothing.
All the lights go out.
This is a funny story.
Because it was daylight, wasn't it?
Well, Russell and I had to shoot this. Well, he had to shoot it, and I was helping him. But we had about 45 minutes to shoot the opening of his episode.
Yeah.
And it was crazy.
Some of the falls here were shot later.
Yeah. We had to, because
so beautifully done.
Well, he's so good at stuff like this, and close and then pulling, and
Yeah.
And we had remember Russell and I running around going, run, all right, go that way. Go. And he's like, get in there with the handheld camera. Okay, quickly, shoot this.
Yeah.
Jackson! What's happening, Jackson? Jackson, what's happening?
So this is kind of a double ending because we wanted to make sure that we grabbed the audience with the death that they didn't expect, Jackson's death. But we also wanted to make sure that that they were dragged into the next episode with a big question. And that question is, where's Stiles?
Get down here. Get down here.
Am I wrong? Was it that this was actually...
This was part of episode 12.
This was part of 12, and you put it on this episode.
Yeah.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
Which I think it works so well.
Yeah. Gives a nice emotional end to it. And sometimes you fade to black, and other times you cut to black with hard cut on a line. And in this episode, we really wanted to get the audience on their feet.
It's really interesting because that was all handheld.
Yeah.
Because of time.
Yeah.
And it really makes the scene.
And that is the episode Battlefield of Teen Wolf. And thank you so much for watching and listening to us. And we hope you enjoyed that.
It was great.
This is Jeff Davis and Christian Taylor. Hope you enjoyed season 2 of Teen Wolf. We'll see you back for season 3.
Yes.